Hey, welcome to Mended Futures, where real stories remind us that broken doesn't mean the end. It's just the beginning of something new.
I'm Evan Bergener.
And I'm Liz Mahan. We're the new Season 2 hosts, and together our goal is to share powerful, true stories of resilience, redemption, and hope.
Each week, we'll walk with people through the valleys and celebrate the moments when light breaks through.
Because every future can be mended, one story at a time.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Mended Futures podcast. We're here in studio with Luke Eberle today. He works for Samaritan's Feet. We're very excited to listen to his journey into the nonprofit space and hear a little bit about what Samaritan's Feet does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Luke, welcome. We're so excited to have you. Would love to just jump right in if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the role that you are in today.
Yeah, first of all, thank you guys for having me. It's crazy. We met through the Business Alliance and then just kind of struck up a conversation, and now here we are. We had some coffee time, and
That's right.
Now we're doing a podcast together. So really grateful to be here. Grateful to just chat more about Samaritan's Feet, hear more about 518. So in terms of myself, how I got into Samaritan's Feet, it was just truly an awesome experience. Sports kind of drove a lot of my life growing up. And I grew up in a sports family. I played basketball, lacrosse, soccer. Parents played sports. That was kind of their emphasis. And that's what drove me to, decide what was going to happen for college. And eventually that kind of drove me to Liberty, which was an amazing God's providence story in and of itself. Ended up at Liberty, lived a summer in Charlotte playing for a soccer team, and they did a volunteer day, and we ended up going to volunteer at Samaritan's Feet's headquarters, which is based in Charlotte. We were just packing and sorting shoes, and while we were doing that, we ended up meeting Manny, our founder and CEO. If you ever meet him, he's an amazing personality, huge, very charismatic, and very persuasive.
Love.
He ended up telling his story, which is incredible, and it really got me hooked, honestly. And he walked us through the headquarters, and they had a big sports section, that kind of athletes that they had partnered with throughout the 23 years that Samaritan's Feet has been around, in the NBA or NFL, and really sports was the avenue that got us kind of kicked off. And they had a program where they were trying to partner with different college athletes. It was at the start of NIL, where athletes could, essentially make money. That wasn't really the case for the situation with Samaritan's Feet and athletes, but it was an opportunity for nonprofits to partner with college athletes that kind of wasn't really there before. That turned into conversations. I ended up meeting another awesome person that worked for Samaritan's Feet called Kathy Slider, and we ended up connecting, and I became part of Samaritan's Feet. I was kind of an ambassador for about 3 years, and then I came full on staff February of last year. So it's been a full year.
Wow. That's
awesome.
incredible. It's fascinating to me. I think that's that whole ambassador role with the NIL piece. That's something that I hadn't personally heard of, and I follow sports closely because when you hear NIL, you just think, oh, they're making money. But I really think that's a cool way that you kind of got into the nonprofit world, is kind of being an ambassador and doing good with your platform. I think that's one, really cool that you did, and two, cool that that's even a possibility. So getting a little bit more into Samaritan's Feet, what do you all actually do, and who do y'all serve?
Our entire mission is to use shoes as the avenue to reach people all around the world. And that can look very different depending on who we serve, what country we're in, domestically, international. But that's essentially our entire mission. And we really view shoes as the avenue and the tool that we can maybe get into certain schools that we wouldn't be able to get into, or reach other individuals that maybe wouldn't come to an event if shoes weren't being given out, or get into a country under, maybe the name of humanitarian aid, but then we're able to share the gospel also. So that's really what our goal is shoes. In many senses, it's something that is needed, especially internationally. Kids need shoes to go to school. If they don't have them, they don't go, they fall behind. We see that all the time, just the importance of it, that domestically we might not see all the time, but internationally it's a huge issue. So for us to solve that issue and then also be able to bring the gospel
Mm-hmm.
as well through that is really our entire mission.
I love that. And I know as you were touching on the mission, I was also curious, like organizations have a why. What is your personal why as to why you're drawn to this mission and what's really fulfilling about the role that you have?
Mm-hmm. There were times in my life where I'd seen the impact of shoes or lack thereof before I had even heard of Samaritan's Feet. I did some different work in some other countries. I had a teammate of mine on the soccer team that was from Haiti, and we ran soccer camps. We played with the kids there, and none of them had shoes. It was just their normal. And we ended up sending cleats there that we had from our team. And it took a while to get there. Haiti is its own story of kind of turmoil right now, but really it's a miracle that the shoes ended up getting there. And I ended up getting an email back with kids wearing the cleats that we had used as a team on our Liberty team. And it was just a full circle moment. I had really seen the impact of shoes. So I'd say that was the moment that I just saw the need, and I was really impacted by that. And just, I think that's what called me to the mission.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome.
Awesome. Now, we talked a little bit about the why. I'm curious as to the how. Can you give us like a good snapshot as to like how you get from, okay, we've identified this need. We need X amount of shoes in whichever country. And how do you get from the identifying the need to boots on the ground, putting it into people's hands?
In the business world, I feel like they talk about like SOPs and processes. We do our best to have that, but every single country we're in, every single school we're in, everything is different. I mean, depending on domestically, even the last 2 years, schools are way more protective of volunteers and people coming into a school, especially public schools. Countries going into Kenya versus Uganda is like drastically different. There's different taxes involved. So I am not on the shipping side. Thankfully, we have an amazing Larry does that. He's incredible.
Larry,
shout out to Larry. Shout out to Larry. But that's kind of the how is just it's all over the place. But really, it's just through partners that care for the mission, and you just kind of make it work, whether it's through churches, whether it's through corporate partners, individuals. You guys are in the nonprofit world, so support comes from a wide range of people.
Absolutely.
For sure. And if people are interested in supporting Samaritan's Feet, what would that look like? Is it partnerships with different companies and organizations, or is it like an individual level, and how would they support y'all's mission and what y'all do?
When people kind of ask that question, I always ask in return to whoever that would be that would want to support, what do they feel they're called to, in the sense that do they want to serve in a Title I school? Do they want to serve a homeless shelter? Maybe they feel called to a specific country. I feel like we try and start with that. And then, there's tons of different ways, whether it's just volunteering and helping pack shoes into a shipping container that gets sent, or it's financially supporting, or it's through connections. But it runs the gambit on how people can support. But I always try and ask them, what is it that they feel called to?
For sure.
Once we get that nailed down, then we go from there.
For sure. And I think that's very powerful that you start there, not as much as like, oh, fill this role. It's what are you passionate about? What are you strong in? What are your strengths? And then running with that. I think that's such a powerful thing. So I respect that a lot. I admire that.
I think that's what I've learned is just in terms of donor relations, and Liz, you know that so well, it's not so much just about asking. Right. It's how can you steward what they want to give and kind of what they feel called to, and can we just be the mission or the avenue to carry out what their mission is themselves. Sometimes it means them coming alongside what we're already doing, but also a lot of times, especially for us, we're very programmatic and making certain events run, and it's someone feels called to that specific situation, and we want to just do all we can to make that work for them.
For sure. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And I love it from the standpoint of what you said about figuring out what they feel called to first. That's something that we definitely try to do as a donor engagement team, and something our boss has always told us about is like, leading, like asking people where their heart is and going off of that, and not just, hey, here's this need we have, like, and just trying to pigeonhole them into that. Like, it's really about where God's kind of calling them and like pulling on their heart to go in a certain direction. Where who are we to interfere with that? Kind of taking a little bit of a detour. I'm curious, you've kind of been in the boots on the ground role with like going overseas to several different countries and delivering these shoes, sharing the gospel. Are there any stories over your experiences that stick out in particular to you?
Yeah. I went to Nairobi, Kenya in September of last year. It was an awesome experience. I was able to go we were going with another ministry, and we went to Nairobi has some of the biggest slums in the world and super, super poor areas. And we partnered with a few churches down there. And the story that we ended up getting shoes, like I said, everything is different, is the people that went, we carried duffels of shoes. And we had to get them through the airport and all these crazy things. We got held up at the airport, and there's tons of stories with that. But eventually we finally got them to this church that was basically nothing more than a shack in the slums of Nairobi. And we ended up doing a full, Samaritan's feet shoe distribution and washing the feet and having everyone in a line and fitting them with new pairs of shoes. And I'll never forget that I feel like we put so much emphasis on how many followers people have, the influence, even like donors, how much money that donors can give. And we put them on a pedestal, and then you see that where their money or where the mission is actually carrying it out and going to that place. And then you're hearing their story. You're sitting across from someone. And again, the shoes were just an avenue that we can meet someone in their community, sit across from them, and then for them to tell their story. And I just remember hearing so many stories of these people that their level of suffering and pain is so much greater than the average suffering for just us in our daily life. But ultimately their trust in God and how he'll provide is so much greater than what we have. So I just remember leaving that distribution and just thinking, man, like how grateful that, that God has blessed us with the things that we have, but at the same time, the faith that these people have so much less.
Yeah.
I will never forget that.
Yeah. What has distributing shoes done for your faith? Like seeing the people's faith just be so much deeper and so much more rich over there. Like what has that done for your faith personally?
I think it's opened the door for me just to meet other people that I never would have met. And that's really, there's so many distributions where people come and they want a pair of shoes. And ultimately that's what they want. They want. Yeah. And then they sit across from you or you sit across from them and it turns into so much more. So I think just the amount of people that I've been able to meet through the ministry, that it takes and you guys have the same thing. You have numbers. We want to distribute this amount of shoes. We want to impact this amount of kids. And then you trickle that down to let's never forget the one interaction we have with one individual. That's what the mission is. It's not, we've distributed, 100,000 shoes or something like that. It's, we were able to sit across from 100,000 individuals through, X, Y, and Z.
Wow.
Absolutely.
You really hit on something there, because we can get we think it might be different because it's the nonprofit world. But it's similar to a business. It's like we can get caught up in the impact numbers and making things look as impressive as possible. And yes, we do want to demonstrate that impact and give the actionable stats or what have you. But when you get down to the human element of it, like what you're talking about, and just that one-on-one interaction with that person, being able to serve those in need, that is what it's all about. So that's such a cool thing that you've been able to experience during your time there. Are there any barriers or any challenges that you all are facing that are kind of that you're looking to overcome? Is there anything standing between you and being able to serve people more that you can think of?
So we have the international side of Samaritan's Feet, which involves a lot of churches and shipping containers that go over in large quantities. And then we have the domestic side, which usually is smaller scale, maybe more corporate partners, individuals giving, and then we partner with more schools, shelters, senior centers. We have a whole senior program. And probably I find it harder to break down the barriers domestically than internationally. And I think that is, to answer that question, would be just because we care so much about how we're perceived, and even those that are in the highest need care about what shoes they have on their feet. And I think that's some of the difficulty we run into is we're a humanitarian aid organization. We're not a shoe company. We're not
Right.
giving out Nikes, and
Right.
I wish we could, but that's probably the reality is. And I was in middle school once too. I wanted a pair of Nikes,
Right.
so I don't
Yeah.
put that on anyone else. I totally understand that, but I think that is the difficulty just we face domestically is people have expectations more, no matter how in need they are.
For sure. Yeah. I think kind of going back to your experiences in different countries in Africa too, I think something that was popping into my head is the way y'all are serving people is very much the way Jesus showed up for people. Like he always met the practical need first and then went deeper. And I think that's just like a really beautiful example of like telling the gospel through actions first. So wanted to encourage you in that like you guys are doing an incredible job in that. And I was just thinking of the way that you guys are being intentional in that way. So very inspired by that for sure. I love that. All right, Luke. So I know that sometimes being in the nonprofit space, it's really hard in the day-to-day. Like life can feel very heavy. Things can feel very dark. And it's really hard to have hope sometimes because you're just seeing the day in, day out need. What gives you hope as you're looking to the future? What gives you purpose in what you're doing?
Yeah, great question. And what comes to mind is a book called When Helping Hurts. And it's all about how for the last 20 years, we've sent tons of aid to countries all around the world. And aid is wonderful, but it's very temporary.
Yeah.
And shoes, we know, are pretty temporary. They definitely solve a problem at a certain point, but they wear out. So something that I know we've been talking about as a full organization is how can we create more sustainability? And that's difficult with something that wears out.
Right.
So I feel like there's been a push in the greater nonprofit world, in the greater business world, is how can you kind of build up communities for sustainability and maybe more like basically jobs. How can you have one person that has a job that then can provide for their family? And people have way bigger families in other countries. So how can we basically do that impact? So the goal is how can we make Samaritan's Feet more sustainable with our shoes and also financially? And this is a story for a way bigger day, but the goal is we have an enterprise called The World Shoe, and we built a factory in Ghana, and it's provided a ton of jobs for people all throughout Ghana, and we are producing basically the shoe we distribute internationally. It's an awesome product, and not only is it creating jobs, but it's a very sustainable model, not only from the shoes perspective, but again, also financially. So how can then the World Shoe support Samaritan's Feet? And I think that's what's really exciting is you guys know just sustainability and nonprofits and, donor fatigue, and how can we kind of have an avenue that it can be cyclical and that we can just kind of keep the mission going through this other enterprise that can support Samaritan's Feet. So.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good thing. Like nonprofits, yes, we're meeting a practical need, and yes, we're meeting like people potentially in crisis, but like you said, those things can be temporary. Like the aid, like shoes are temporary or random things, like food resources, they're temporary, but it's like, how can you meet the person behind that need? And I love that you're creating jobs, that you're creating sustainability for people. So it's impacting them long term. It's not just meeting the need for however long shoes last, but it's how can you impact that family, or how can you impact that person that's employed? So I think that's really important too, is nonprofits thinking like, how can I not just address today's issues, but long-term for this family or long-term for this person?
Because When Helping Hurts talks about how in Haiti, we sent a ton of aid. And when we send a ton of rice, for example, that puts all of the rice farmers out of business.
Mm.
So now, yes, it looks great on paper. We're sending aid. We're doing, we're meeting that need. There's a crisis in that country. It's being solved, but temporarily. Once that rice goes out, not only is the rice out, but all those people that were employed, that had their own businesses, rice farmers, whatnot, that source of income is done because they can't compete with free.
Right.
So I feel like there's a greater movement within just like the faith-driven investor and entrepreneur world that there's this idea that maybe the next 20 years doesn't have to always be about free items. It can be about, how can we create more jobs and sustainability in countries. So I think that's what we're excited about at Samaritan's Feet is we've been a part of that. We give out free shoes and it enables us to share the gospel. And I definitely don't want to take away from that ministry and that aspect of what we do, but it's also how can we improve that model? How can we, still do what we're doing at Samaritan's Feet, but just make it better. So that's the goal. Yeah, that's what brings me hope.
Sticking great and making it greater.
Yeah.
That's great that you all are taking the initiative to not just throw more shoes and more money at the need and just doing like what you've been doing, but creating that sustainability. That's very admirable that you all were able to kind of keep that bigger lens picture, able to zoom out a little bit. But Luke, it's been great talking to you. Great catching up as always. And those of y'all that are listening, please go check out Samaritan's Feet, check out what they're all about. And if you feel led, support them, please. Great people like Luke and Larry continue to do the great work that they do. But yeah, Luke, thanks again so much for joining us. And thank you all for listening.
Yeah. Thank you guys. This has been really fun.
The Mended Futures podcast is the production of 518 Family Services, formerly Patrick Henry Family Services in Lynchburg, Virginia. Our mission is to build communities of faithful relationships that ensure children are safe and families are restored.
Mended Futures are at the heart of who we are, our stories, our hope, and our vision. They aren't just stories we tell, they're something you can help create. When you give to 518, you're not just making a donation, you're stepping into someone's story. You're helping a family find hope, and you're helping our community heal.
Because of the generosity of people like you, reconciliation is happening in our community each day. Our donors further the mission of seeing every child with a thriving family supported by a faithful community.
We want to see Mended Futures for families in Lynchburg, Virginia, and the 4 surrounding counties. So we invite you to check out our website, 518.org/givemended. That's FIVE18.org/givemended. Join us in the ministry of reconciliation.